Hi there, Year 6. I'm pre-recording your computing today because you've got a few different options of how you might want to create some digital artwork this afternoon to support some of your learning you've done around Take One Picture Week. And I thought that'd be easiest for me to pre-record because I'm going to be showing you some things that you can access on a laptop, and then a couple of tools that you can access through the Google Arts and Culture app if you prefer. But I'm going to start with the web-based application first, and that's here at a website called sumo.app. And as you can see from the homepage of sumo.app, there's logins and trials, paid for aspects of this app, but actually what we're going to use today is absolutely free and you can access it whenever you want. So you go to the top of the screen here where it says apps, and you head down to where it says Sumo Paint because we are using their Paint app. Some of the other elements they have are worth having a look at as well if you get the opportunity. Then you just hit on open. It's just loading now. And you'll kind of find yourself with this blank page, a sort of blank canvas. Loads of tools on the toolbar at the left hand side. You have some controls along the top of how you can alter the tools that you're going to be using. You then have the kind of layers bar here, color bar, loads of different options. You'll also see that there's filters, adjustments, loads of things that you can experiment with as well at the top. I'm just going to start by suggesting to you some ways that you can create something that's Lowry-esque using this particular paint tool. It's probably similar to some paint tools you've used before. It's a little bit more complex to the one that comes standard with Windows, so you'll have a few more options of things that you can do here if you want to. One of the key, I'm just going to move my face for a second. One of the key things that we've spoken about before when we've been using PowerPoint for image editing is the layers, this idea of putting one thing on top of the other and then being able to remove it, send it backwards, all those sorts of things. So I would suggest that whenever you start with your blank page, you always add an additional layer or two. It's worth, whenever you're doing image editing, if you can, staying on top of what each layer is by naming it, and that helps you when you later on, when if you find you're getting a bit confused between what's what. So I'm going to have a background layer, I'm going to have a buildings layer, and then I'm going to have a people layer in this instance for my picture. Now I'm going to rush mine as always, I'm afraid, with these things, but I'm going to show you a couple of key features, and then hopefully you'll be able to play and experiment a little bit yourself. So first things first, I'm going to click onto my paint bucket and I am going to give my background just a simple colour wash that isn't bright white because that's not really in keeping, and I'll be able to add to this on my background too, but you'll see. So I've clicked up here in the little colour dot, I can select any colour from the palette here, press OK, and I can fill my background in that colour. So I've gone with this slightly kind of purpley, slightly darker off-white colour here. Now there's loads of other tools that I can use, but the key ones I'm focusing on today, as you might imagine, are in the paintbrush icon here. And you'll see that along the top then I have all of these options: some flow, diameter, which is the size in pixels, and often you'll find that when you're doing image editing with slightly more complex programs it uses pixels rather than just set size numbers. Opacity, so how sort of see-through it is, how transparent. And then there's the brush tool here, and with the brush you're able to select a series of different brush styles. Now some of these aren't going to be useful at all, they might be quite fun, some of the stamp style ones, but actually as you move down you'll see that towards the bottom there's these interesting textures that are slightly more paint based. I find these really interesting, and you might want to, for example, let's have a look. I'm going to go with this. Let's go with this particular paint texture that is called Basic Brush. Click on there. Ooh, click on there. There we go. You'll see that my where my cursor was before now on the canvas, if you can see that, is actually now in the same style as the brush. And if I'm to paint across this page, or let me select a different colour, otherwise you won't see it. If I was to paint across there in something slightly darker maybe, press OK, you'll see that this is the kind of effect that this particular brush gives. Quite useful. It's not perfect for what I needed. I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. I want my brush to be much larger because I'm going to put a bit of a wash across the back here, so my brush is getting larger already. I'm going to set it its maximum size, 150 pixels. I'm also going to want to change my opacity because I want it to be fairly transparent, so it's just adding some texture to the top. Let's see if I can make it even more Try that again, Control Z. Ooh. There we go. Let's make sure I'm on my background. Oh, there we go. Right. So you can see here that I can start to layer up a few more, so I can have some sections of it. So there's a little bit more texture. Again, a little bit more like Lowry's, where we have these texture. I think I've also undone the names that I've given to my layers, which is quite lucky because I've overdone some. So I can keep doing that. I can experiment with different colours, layering on top of each other, different textures, so that I get a nice base background. Let's change that one. Lovely. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Here we go. Great. And that works for me. I'm quite pleased with this. I think I'm going to be able to build up on top of it. At the moment it might look a bit of a mess, but don't worry, I'm going to build on top of that. If I wanted to, I've got these options, and I could blur this a little bit, as I would if I were going to smudge something. And that'll just blur it slightly. So again, I'm having, can you see here, that it's all slightly more blurred. So the mess is still there, but it's just a little bit of texture, better than my plain white. Now let's get rid of some of these layers that I now, turns out, don't need. So I'm going to right click over here, I'm going to delete that layer, I'm going to merge this layer down, which means I'm going to mix it with the layer below. So I'll just be left with one, which is my background layer so far. Great. Happy with that. That's looking really good, I think. There's also actually a smudge tool over on this side that you could choose to use instead of blurring if you'd rather, but I'm happy with this texture as my background. And then I'm going to start thinking now about putting my buildings in. New layer. Let's hope I don't accidentally delete the name of this one again. So let's go buildings. And again, I'm going to want to have a look at the brush style that I want, and I can experiment with some of these to see which is going to work best for me. I'm going to try this one this time. Basic brush. It's a little too large for what I need, so I'm going to reduce the diameter of this tool. Great. And then I'm going to start to just pop in some buildings, and again quite muted colours as I start to block these in for the first time. Oh, I need a little bit more opacity here, it's a bit too transparent. This one needs to really show up a little more. There we go. So I can start to think about the shapes of my buildings as I'm putting this together, and again you can see that it's giving me a little bit of a brush shape as I go. There we go. Start to look at layering up here as well, and again I can pull in and out. I can increase my opacity if I want to now that I've got my basic shape, and I can go over the top of this a little more, start to build up some more colours, and I can keep doing this as I go. And what's really good is whenever I need it, I've got Control Z right there, as in all our programs, that I can just undo any of the mistakes I make. Great. I can add in a little bit more texture later, but that's one of my buildings there. I can pop some windows, etc. on there, and I can build up in the background. I might have a range of different colours of buildings. I might have some chimney stacks going. That's up to you to decide as you start to pull this together. But again, this is really about experimenting. One of the best things about digital art is that it gives you a sort of canvas that you can work with quickly and easily, and without causing you to have to really think about the mistakes you make and tweak them. And quite often artists will find that either they sketch first and then they jump on and become, when they're digital artists, and use the computer, or sometimes subversely they will use the computer to come up with an idea and then start to hammer that in real life. But again, you have to use quite a lot of imagination to see where my picture might go from here, because I would want to put windows in and brick details. I've got loads of different brush options to be able to do that. But then finally, when I'm ready, I would add in another layer, and my next layer would be my people layer. Oops, let's try that again. People. Now, something we noticed yesterday in class is that Lowry's people had these large sort of shoes that were really quite bold and obvious, very black. So I'm going to reduce the size of this a little more now, because I'm going to be dealing with something a little closer up. If I want to, I can also, let's go with OK. I can also zoom in, but I'm just going to show you this from a distance for now. So start to put the details in here of this character's feet, boots. I can then change my colour again. I could change the brush. I could come up with, let's have a look, colour for the trousers for this person. And I can start to form the figure as you would see in a Lowry painting. Legs here. and again it's that sort of matchstick effect as we go, and I can build that up, base up. And what's really cool is that over here on the layers tab I can then start to turn layers on or off, see whether or not that works. I could put different people on different layers. I could have foreground, midground, background, and then actually if I'm not happy with that I can turn one of those layers off and it completely disappears already. I could have my basic for my buildings, and then I can put my windows on a separate layer, and I can just start to play with what's looking effective and what isn't going to work effectively. Really, for this tool, I'm not expecting lots of you to be saving loads. I want you to experiment, have a look at the different textures, different brushes and different tools. You can see how some of these other tools down the side work if you want to. For example, when we are looking to sort of smudge some of the work that we have, you can get your finger out and you can smudge that work, which can bring it to life a little bit more, give it a good push around as you're doing it. There's some really fun ones in here, some that won't work at all for today, but are really useful, like this mandala tool where you can do some really interesting things on the top. But try and try and create something of a Lowry-esque piece of art if you're using this tool today. And again, you can use it as inspiration for the artwork you're doing in real life, or you can use the artwork that you've been doing in real life as an inspiration for your digital art today. See how you go. If you do want to save, if you're really happy at the end, all you have to do is press save to HD and that will save for you, or you can export it in different formats. But hopefully that'll be something that you can really experiment with and have a lot of fun with this afternoon. The other two options that I have for you are in the Google Arts and Culture app, and I'm going to jump onto my phone and screen record there so I can talk you through how you might do those. So here we are on the Google Arts and Culture homepage, and I'm going to show you a few ways that you can create some digital art on this platform as well. So obviously I showed you the other day about how to drop some artwork into your home, but there's some other really cool features, things called games or experiments that you can use that are really useful. So let's start with, I think we'll start with the camera icon. What's cool in here is that you get a chance to use something called art transfer. So you can take a photograph from home and then you can transform that with classic artworks. So for example, if I was to take a photograph of myself, bear with me, I can then choose a style from any of these classic art styles, and you might want to experiment with these. You'll see then that depending on the style I choose, I get different effects. What else is really cool about this is if I wanted to, I can click on the scissors icon up at the top here. I can, oops, dear me, lost that, let's try again. I can click on the scissors icon up at the top, let's go with this one. And then I can draw around a feature in the photo and either have just the effect on that feature, or I can have just the effect around, flattering, or I can go undo and do both. What's cool as well is that you can use this GIF icon, so you can export it so that it shows you moving between the effect that you've placed on and off. That's really fun, you can have a good play. What's cool about that is you can go around your house and take loads of different photographs of different scenes, settings, and then try and see how you can experiment with them, which I think is really useful and really fun. Another fun tool that you can access this two ways, but if you just swipe down, you'll come across, they've got all these different sections here, artworks and museums, but one of them is this games, which is actually these things called Google Experiments. There's some really fun ones. One that I'd suggest having a play with this afternoon if you get the opportunity is the art colouring book. As it sounds, you get a piece of art and you get a chance to colour that in. Now what's really cool, I'll just try and find a picture, let's have a look, one that might be effective to show you, this one for example. When you get the painting in, it will just be in these outlines with no texture at all. You have a small colour palette down here at the bottom, and the colours on the left hand side are ones that are used in the actual painting. So if you want to, I'm going to press this icon to see the original painting, you can try and recreate the painting as it is, so I can see that I've hit that pretty well on. Or, possibly more fun, you can experiment using different colours, try and make a bit more of a vibrant picture, and you can make it absolutely your own and see how different colours look in different spaces. You can just tap over the top if you want to change any of those at any time, and you can build up your own picture using this colouring book tool. Again, once you're finished, you can export it, screenshot it, save it to your gallery, share it around. I think that's really useful. There's some great different pieces of art in there that you can use as well. That's the art colouring book. There's a few other bits and bobs that I think are worth looking at. One that we really enjoyed looking at the other day was the Puzzle Party app, and this just lets you, rather than creating your own digital art, it lets you experiment and play with a little bit of art, and you can see more details actually than you might do in normal times. So again, you can, for example, the Mondrian piece here, you can open that and it comes in as a jigsaw puzzle. You can collaborate on this puzzle with another person if you have their number and you can invite them, then that's really fun. You can collaborate on that together. But if I play solo, I then have all of these pieces of a jigsaw and I can move them around trying to find the different aspects. And as I say, you start to notice different things that maybe you wouldn't have done without this style going on there. Oh, no, clearly not right. So you get to put it together, you get your final artwork, and you'll see every piece in quite good detail as well, which is really useful, I think, too. So, 3 different things that you can look at this afternoon. You can head to the experiments, which were down, let's go back to the home screen, which were down here under games, and you can either create some digital colouring or have a look at some of those puzzles, or you can use the camera icon and have a go at using art transfer to create your own digital artwork. Enjoy!